Do you know what true horror is? It's when death itself stops being the end and instead becomes a slow, deliberate performance. At the center of this story is a man who turned pain into policy. Vlad III of Wallachia, remembered as Vlad the Impaler. Forget the myths of vampires. The truth is far more terrifying. Here was a ruler who weaponized fear itself. His rule didn't begin with a sword or a crown, but with a wooden stake. Not designed for quick death, but for slow suffering. Vlad didn't invent impalement, but he perfected it. Methodical, calculated, engineered for maximum psychological impact. His goal wasn't just to kill, it was to send a message written in human flesh. Picture this: a lonely road stretching beyond the horizon. Thousands of bodies, rigid and rotting on tall stakes, the air heavy with stench. Travelers didn't just see corpses, they saw a government decree, a declaration of terror written in silence. The technique itself was chilling. Stakes were long, polished smooth, and tipped just enough to pierce without causing instant death. Sometimes greased, so the body would slide down slowly. Sometimes tilted, so the victim would spin as gravity pulled them lower. Every detail mattered. Entry point, angle, height, all designed to keep the victim alive, suffering, and on display. The stake could enter through the abdomen or the lower body for humiliation. Sometimes it emerged through the mouth. Other times it pierced the chest but avoided the heart. This wasn't random cruelty. It was a science of suffering, perfected over years. And the purpose? Never just punishment. The purpose was public theater. Markets, border roads, villages. Wherever eyes might gather, Vlad raised his forest of warnings. Each impaled body whispered the same words: "Betray me, and this will be your fate." Who were his victims? Enemies of war, invading soldiers, rebellious boyars, deceitful merchants, even peasants suspected of aiding his enemies. No one was safe. That uncertainty widened the fear. Everyone lived under the shadow of the stake. His cruelty became law itself. Remember the legend of the golden cup placed by a public fountain? No one dared steal it because the punishment was already etched in their minds. He governed not with kindness, but with a terror so pervasive it kept society in line. Now imagine 1462. Sultan Mehmed II leads a massive Ottoman army into Wallachia. But before his soldiers face swords, they face a nightmare landscape. Forests are gone, villages burned, and then an eerie sight. Thousands of stakes, each carrying a human body, forming a grotesque border. Numbers vary. Some say tens of thousands, some say fewer. But the truth is the exact count didn't matter. The impact was enough. Hardened warriors froze at the sight. For the first time, it wasn't death they feared. It was the fate of becoming a message. Vlad combined this spectacle with scorched earth tactics. Villages burned, crops destroyed, wells poisoned. Then came night raids. Small squads striking Ottoman camps, killing sentries, burning tents, disappearing into the dark. The result was a sleepless, disoriented enemy, haunted by the stakes they had already seen. Fear became contagious. Rumors of Vlad's cruelty spread faster than any army could march. Survivors carried tales back across Europe. Vlad himself didn't need scribes. His victims became his propaganda. But make no mistake, Vlad wasn't a madman killing at random. There was cold logic behind his cruelty. Wallachia was a fragile state, trapped between mighty empires. He didn't have wealth or numbers. What he had was terror, and he wielded it as carefully as a sword. He even experimented with variations of execution. Upright impalement, with victims left groaning for hours. Horizontal impalement, bodies stretched like specimens. Slanted stakes, letting the body slide slowly toward death. Sometimes he dined while victims writhed nearby, turning punishment into theater. Chroniclers wrote of banquets where the screams of the dying blended with laughter and music. To Vlad, violence wasn't just punishment. It was performance, a ritual, a lesson. And every guest who witnessed it became part of the propaganda machine. So was he a sadist or a strategist? Perhaps both. His childhood shaped him, years spent as an Ottoman prisoner, absorbing humiliation and cruelty. When he returned to rule, his answer to betrayal was calculated vengeance. Pain was his instrument. Order was his excuse. Even justice was twisted into tests. A merchant accused of cheating was punished brutally to warn others. A stolen coin returned to its owner was a chance for mercy. Vlad's system wasn't about fairness, it was about control through blood and fear. Sometimes entire villages were punished, burned, or impaled for aiding the Ottomans. Betrayal wasn't an individual crime, it was collective, and punishment was collective too. Everyone was reminded, loyalty was life, suspicion was death. Witnesses described impaled corpses arranged in patterns, rows, circles, even geometric displays. Each formation told a story, each body a letter in Vlad's language of terror. To ride through Wallachia was to read a nightmare written in human remains. But here's the paradox. Some common people admired him. To them, Vlad was the prince who destroyed thieves, punished corrupt nobles, and kept order in chaotic times. The streets were safe, markets quiet, crime rare. But the price was steep. Safety bought with nightmares. Elsewhere, however, he was demonized. German pamphlets spread woodcuts of Vlad dining among the impaled. Printers exaggerated his cruelty, turning him into Europe's monster. He became infamous not only in Wallachia, but across the continent. The numbers may have been inflated, but the essence was true. His violence was systematic, public, and deliberate, and that made him unforgettable. Vlad understood the power of storytelling. His executions weren't just punishments, they were headlines. Merchants, diplomats, travelers, all became his unwilling messengers, spreading tales of horror across Europe. This was propaganda without parchment, fear written in flesh, remembered in whispers, carried across borders. But terror has limits. It works in the short term, yet it breeds enemies in the long run. Nobles plotted against him. Foreign powers distrusted him. His reign of fear eventually backfired, leaving him isolated. Captured and imprisoned by King Matthias of Hungary, Vlad's reputation grew even as he rotted in chains. Stories of his cruelty spread through pamphlets, making him infamous across Christendom. He was both prisoner and legend. When he regained his throne briefly near the end of his life, the world around him had changed. Enemies multiplied. Allies grew cautious. In 1476, Vlad met his end. Whether in battle or by betrayal remains uncertain. His head was reportedly sent to Constantinople as proof. His grave is lost. His legend endures. His death didn't kill the story. In fact, it immortalized him. Centuries later, Bram Stoker borrowed his name for Dracula. The vampire myth grew, but at its root was the true horror of a ruler who fed not on blood, but on fear. The real Vlad wasn't a demon, he was a man. A ruler shaped by violence, who chose to rule through it. To some, he was a hero who defended his land. To others, he was a butcher. Both views still clash today. Psychologically, his methods worked because they touched primal fear.
Public pain strips away dignity and hope, forcing everyone to imagine themselves in the victim's place. Vlad weaponized empathy, twisting it into dread. For society, the impact was total. Crime dropped, but so did trust. Villages lived in silence. Diplomats feared offense. Wallachia became a land ruled not by laws, but by the shadow of wooden stakes. Even small acts of defiance were punished in spectacular fashion. Ottoman envoys who refused to remove their turbans had them nailed into their skulls, a grotesque warning that respect for his law was absolute. On the battlefield, cruelty served as a shield. Vlad's forces were small, but fear made them larger. Soldiers fought harder, knowing their prince was ruthless. Enemies hesitated,